also need to evolve our approach to China. Now let's be clear, the so-called golden era is over.
Think back to when Liz Truss, the leader of the UK at the time, said that China wasn't just a competitor, it was a serious problem, something similar to Rishi Sunak just a moment ago. The UK wasn't just talking, they were doing things, like getting rid of Huawei from their super-fast internet and stopping a Chinese company from buying important tech stuff. They even wanted to join a trade club to be less reliant on China. Now, why does this matter? Well, when China has problems, it can affect everyone. Imagine big companies like Apple and Volkswagen that rely on Chinese people to buy their products. If the Chinese start buying less, it doesn't just impact these companies, it also affects workers and suppliers all around the world. It's like a chain reaction that can influence the whole game. Next Generation Economics brings you the latest economic, financial, and global news from different parts of the world. If you are new here on our channel, enjoy learning about different topics on a global level. We know that you will find our videos intriguing and informative. In this video, we are going to discuss the heavy sanctions piled on China. Watch this video till the end and see how the sanctions affect the UK economy and the entire world. Let's get started. In September 2022, it was announced by Liz Truss, the former leader of the UK, that China wasn't just a competitor but was viewed as a threat. This idea aligned with the latest review of the UK's defense, stating that China posed the biggest threat to the company's economic safety. Actions were being taken by the UK, as mentioned at the beginning of the video. Huawei equipment was ensured to be removed from their fast internet networks by 2027. A Chinese company's attempt to acquire an electronic design software company named Pulsic was rejected due to safety concerns. There was also the possibility of preventing a Chinese company from acquiring Newport Wafer Fab, the UK's largest semiconductor plant. Concerns extended beyond safety to how China treated people, including the Uyghurs, and the situation in Hong Kong. The Taiwan issue was also on the table, with Truss during her tenure as the Foreign Secretary addressing China's aggression against Taipei. The UK, observing how Australia dealt with China, was cautious, considering collaboration with friends rather than going against China alone. Emphasizing the importance of trade, the narrative warned against using strong language without a plan, as it could lead to tension and conflict. There was a suggestion of a collective effort to limit China's access to computer chips from Taiwan, recognizing their significance for China's technology. The narrative urged engagement with China rather than opposition, as advised by Tim Summers, a knowledgeable professor in Chinese affairs. The key question is what China's economic problems mean for the world. For example, when the United States gets a cold, people say the whole world catches it. Now, what about when China is not feeling well? China is the second largest economy globally, with over 1.4 billion people, and it's dealing with various problems like slow growth, lots of young people without jobs, and issues in the property market. The person in charge of a big real estate company in China, Evergrande, is being watched by the police, and the company's shares are stopped from trading on the stock market. This is causing a big headache for China. But does it affect the rest of the world a lot? Experts think that while it may not lead to a worldwide disaster, it will still have some effects. Big companies from different countries like Apple, Volkswagen, and Burberry make a lot of money from Chinese people buying their products. So if Chinese people start spending less, these companies will feel it, and it'll affect the workers and suppliers worldwide who depend on these companies. China is responsible for more than a third of the world's growth, so if it slows down, it'll impact other places. A credit rating agency called Fitch lowered its forecast for the world's growth because of China's slowdown. However, some economists say that the idea that China is the main reason the whole world is doing well is not entirely true. China exports more than it imports, so whether China grows or not matters more to China than the rest of the world. Still, if China buys fewer things like raw materials, it affects countries that sell these materials such as the UK, Australia, Brazil, and some African countries. So while the impact might not be the same for everyone, it'll be felt in different ways. If people in China are not buying much, it means prices there will stay low. For those of us in the Western world, this could be good news, because it might help control the rising prices without making things more expensive by raising interest rates. So for now, regular people might benefit from China slowing down. However, there are questions for people in developing countries in the long run. In the last 10 years, China has spent over $1 trillion on big projects like roads and airports in more than 150 countries through the Belt and Road Initiative. But if China has economic problems at home, it might not be able to keep investing so much in these projects abroad. While less Chinese investment in other countries is a possibility, it's not clear how China's economic issues will affect how it deals with other countries. Some think a more vulnerable China might try to fix its strained relations with the US. The US has put limits on trade with China, and some American companies are finding it hard to invest there. But there's no proof that China is softening its stance. Beijing still responds with its restrictions, criticizes the Cold War mentality of Western countries, and seems to maintain good relations with leaders of countries that are under sanctions, like Russia's Vladimir Putin and Syria's Bashar al-Assad. At the same time, officials from the US and EU keep going to China for trade talks. The truth is, not many people know what's happening between what China says and what it does. Some people in Washington who are tough on China say that if China's economy gets worse, it could affect how China deals with Taiwan, an island that Beijing says belongs to China. They worry that China's leader, Xi Jinping, might become less predictable and do something risky regarding Taiwan if it becomes clear that China's economic miracle is over. However, many people, including US President Joe Biden, don't believe in this idea. When asked about it, he said Mr. Xi currently has a lot to deal with regarding the country's economic problems. I don't think it's going to cause China to invade Taiwan. In fact, the opposite. China probably doesn't have the same capacity as it had before, Mr. Biden said. But if there's one thing we should remember from history, it's to be ready for surprises. As Ms. Elms points out, few people before 2008 expected that issues with subprime mortgages in Las Vegas would send shockwaves through the global economy. The similarities with the 2008 crisis have some analysts concerned about what's called financial contagion. This includes the scary possibility of China's property crisis causing a total collapse in the Chinese economy, leading to a financial meltdown worldwide. Comparisons with the subprime mortgage crisis, which led to the collapse of Wall Street giant Lehman Brothers and a global recession, are tempting. But according to Mr. Magnus, they aren't entirely accurate. This is not going to be a Lehman-type shock, he says. China is unlikely to get their big banks go bust, and they have stronger balance sheets than the thousands of regional and community banks that went under in the US. Now, UK is watching how Australia dealt with China, but it needs to be careful. It might be better to work with friends than go against China alone. Trade is crucial, and even if countries don't get along, they can still trade important things. But the UK needs to be careful. If they use strong words against China just to distract them from their problems, it could lead to more tension and even fights. The narrative implies that it's essential to talk with China and not just be against them, according to Tim Summers, a professor who knows a lot about China. For regular people, if China buys fewer things, prices there stay low, which might help control rising prices in Western countries and of course in the UK, without raising interest rates. However, there are uncertainties for people in developing countries in the long run. China's economic problems could reduce its investments in other countries, affecting global relations. Some fear that it might impact how China deals with Taiwan, but opinions on this vary. Overall, it's a reminder to be prepared for surprises, considering historical events like the 2008 crisis, although this situation might not lead to a similar financial shock. Join the conversation and share your insights. We want to hear your perspective on the UK's crisis caused by sanctions on China. Your thoughts matter, so please drop them in the comments below.